Kim Forbes, welcome. Thank you so much for being part of our resiliency conversations.
Thank you for having me, Kari.
So today we want to talk about your position, which is Tier 3 Behavior Specialist.
Right.
What does your position do on a day-to-day basis?
So the day-to-day during comprehensive distance learning is different than it will be when we're back in building. Right now, my job consists of tracking a lot of data. So keeping track of a student's attendance, keeping track of how students are engaging in comprehensive distance learning, if students are attending live class sessions, if they're doing online assignments, if they're passing their classes, if they're earning credits, and if students are starting to fall through the cracks. It's not a very wide crack for them to fall through at Serendipity, because starting on the second day of consecutive absences or non-engagement, that starts a process where I'm communicating with a student's classroom team, case manager, SPED coordinator, to notify them that the student has not been attending. That then triggers sort of a chain reaction response, so that the case manager will reach out to the family. Sometimes a parent won't know that a student hasn't logged on in a couple of days because our parents are working full time.
Yeah.
They don't have any way to keep track of that, and they have to rely on what their student is telling them.
Yeah.
If a student hits day 5, then the case manager might work to try to set up a home visit. We'll reach out again to the family to problem solve. Internally, our team will meet the classroom team, the case manager, the speech language pathologist if they're involved, our art therapist if she's involved, again, the SPED coordinator, and our entire team comes together. And that's when we review the behavior support plan and really try to individualize what we're doing. Generally, that process has seemed to really help provide a safety net for our students before they can fall through that crack.
So Kim, with your position during comprehensive distance learning, you're gathering a lot of data rather than being really in the classroom, which is where you'd like to be. Is there a way to tell through this sort of more distanced position, as it were, that your position is making an impact with the kids and with the students?
There's always anecdotal data, but in terms of the actual numbers that we've been tracking, just as one example, in the first 6 weeks of school, we had about 20 students who were referred to our Tier 3 team for intensive support. And these were students who weren't engaging, weren't attending, and in some cases, we'd had no communication with the family for several days, sometimes weeks. And by the end of first quarter, so at the end of 9 weeks, 75% of those students had been off of Tier 3, had been removed from the Tier 3 list, because with the team, we'd been able to problem solve what barriers the families were running into. And often it was something as seemingly simple as a family needing to have their internet bill paid for a month so that they could access the Wi-Fi they needed so their students could get online. Sometimes it was a family that was having trouble with paying their rent. And so we were able to collaborate with a RAP team and make sure that the parent didn't have to worry about that. And more importantly, that the student didn't have to worry about that and could log on and focus on their education and do what they needed to do. We continue to have students being referred to Tier 3, but since that initial 8 weeks, we've only had an additional 6 students referred. And so the numbers are decreasing because I think that our teams are figuring out ways to make sure they connect with the students. And again, thinking outside the box of what traditional education might call for, and being willing to um, call the student directly if they haven't shown up for a morning meeting, or just asking a student to check in and not talking about academics at all, but just checking in and making sure they're doing okay. So I think that um, that number of a 75% reduction in the students who started on tier 3 um, is, for me, one of the biggest highlights of what we're doing, and an encouragement of what we're doing is working.
Kim, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to talk with you. I appreciate your time.
Oh, thank you, Kari.